This module focuses on the administration and scoring procedures for Daze, which is a new measure for Dibble's Next. Daze provides an indicator of silent reading comprehension. It is a different way of measuring comprehension than DORF and provides an additional source of information regarding a child's comprehension skills. The reading rope strands are leading to skilled reading and being able to truly understand what is read so that students can read to learn. As an assessment of reading comprehension, Daze provides an indication of whether or not a student is understanding what he or she has read. Reading comprehension is the ultimate goal of all of our reading instruction and assessment activities. It is the ability to understand and process what is read, also described as the process a reader goes through to extract meaning from text by interacting with what is written. Comprehension is the complex process of gaining meaning from text for a variety of purposes. This is very important. Being able to understand what is read is the foundation of learning and allows students to begin to explore the world through print. As Dr. Seuss says, the more you read, the more things you know. The more you learn, the more places you'll go. Reading comprehension is founded on and often defined by accurate and fluent reading of connected text. It involves successful language skills, text integration and verbal skills, as well as the use of background knowledge and working memory. Numerous sub-skills are part of each of these categories. Daze is a new measure for Dibble's Next. Daze is the standardized Dibble's version of Maze procedures for measuring reading comprehension. Daze assesses the student's ability to construct meaning from text using all of the skills and processes listed on the previous slide. Daze is a 3-minute indicator of reading comprehension. It is the only Dibble's measure that lasts longer than 1 minute. It can be given to the entire class at one time. Daze is used for benchmark assessment from the beginning of 3rd grade through the end of 6th grade. The score is the number of correct words in 3 minutes minus half the number of incorrect words. The benchmark goals for the beginning, middle, and end of 3rd and 4th grade are listed on this slide. And the goals for 5th and 6th grade are listed here. To administer Daze, the students in a class are asked to read a passage and circle the words that make the most sense in the story. 3 choices for each missing word are given. The student has to circle the word that makes the most sense in the context of the story. The score is the number of correct responses minus half the number of incorrect responses, which is a way that we compensate for students guessing. Let's watch a video of an educator administering Daze to a 5th grade class.
Okay, I am going to give you a worksheet. When you get your worksheet, please write your name at the top and put your pencil down. You are going to read a story with some missing words. For each missing word, there will be a box with 3 words. Circle the word that makes the most sense in this story. Look at practice number 1. Listen. After playing in the dirt, Sam went home. Summer was to wash her hands. You should circle the word home because home makes the most sense in the story. Listen. After playing in the dirt, Sam went home to wash her hands. Now it's your turn. Read practice 2 silently. When you come to a box, read all the words in the box and circle the word that makes the most sense in the story. When you are done, put your pencil down. Put your pencil down. Listen. On her way home, she, chair, sleep, saw an ice cream truck. You should have circled saw because saw makes the most sense in the story. Listen. On her way home, she saw an ice cream truck. When I say begin, turn the page over and start reading the story silently. When you come to a box, read all the words in the box and circle the word that makes the most sense in the story. Ready? Begin. Stop. Put your pencil down. Thank you.
The materials required for Daze include the student workbooks for each student, a stopwatch, a pen or pencil for each student, and the administrator's copy of the directions and scoring key. To administer the measure, first make sure each student has a pencil. Before handing out the worksheet to each student, say, "I'm going to give you a worksheet. When you get your worksheet, please write your name at the top and put your pencil down." Then, hand out the day's worksheet. When all students are ready, say, "You are going to read a story with some missing words. For each missing word, there will be a box with 3 words. Circle the word that makes the most sense in the story. Look at practice 1. A sample or model is provided to students in practice 1. The teacher or assessor will say, "Listen, after playing in the dirt, Sam went home, summer, was, to wash her hands." You should circle the word home because home makes the most sense in the story. Listen, after playing in the dirt, Sam went home to wash her hands. Now it is your turn. Read practice 2 silently. When you come to a box, read all the words in the box and circle the word that makes the most sense in the story. When you are done, put your pencil down. Allow 30 seconds for the students to complete the example. If students are still completing the task at the end of 30 seconds, say, "Put your pencil down." The assessor provides the correct response for practice 2 after 30 seconds, saying, "Listen, on her way home she, chair, sleep, saw, an ice cream truck." You should have circled saw because saw makes the most sense in the story. Listen, on her way home she saw an ice cream truck. Next, say, "When I say begin," turn the page over and start reading the story silently. When you come to a box, read all the words in the box and circle the word that makes the most sense in the story. Ready? Begin. Start your stopwatch after you say begin. Use the reminders provided as needed. If the student finishes the entire form prior to the end of 3 minutes, have them sit quietly and wait. Scores are not prorated. At the end of 3 minutes, say, "Stop, put your pencil down, and collect the day's worksheets." A scoring key is used for scoring. Students receive 1 point for each correct word that is circled. Put a slash through words that are incorrect. Incorrect responses include errors, boxes with more than one answer circled, and items left blank that are blank because they were skipped. Here are several examples of correct responses. The correct answer is printed on the scoring key in bold. If the student circled the word that is in bold on the answer key, it is correct and should be left blank. For example, the passage reads, "My friend Tyrone goes to a different school than I do, even though he lives in my neighborhood. At his school, there are some programs, and the options are still, languages, and provided in different languages." The student must use semantic cues in the sentence to understand that provided is the only reasonable response for this sentence. In this example, the student circled the correct response. Put a slash over incorrect responses. A response is incorrect if the students circle an item that is not in bold font on the scoring key, if they circle more than one response, or if they skipped an item. Here the student has marked 2 items incorrectly and circled more than one response to another item. Slash is an error any item that is skipped, including all items on a page that is skipped. Do not score as errors the items that were not attempted. Those might be items left blank after the last scored item, or items not attempted due to starting on the second page. There are 3 reminders that can be used as often as needed during Daze administration. If a student starts reading the passage out loud, say, "Remember to read the story silently." If a student is not working on the task, say, "Remember to circle the word in each box that makes the most sense in the story." In addition, if a student asks you to provide a word or for help with the task, say, "Just do your best." Approved accommodations are unlikely to affect how the assessment functions. A score can be reported and interpreted as an official DIBELS score. Approved accommodations for Daze include the use of enlarged student materials for students with visual impairments, colored overlays, filters, or lighting adjustments for students with visual impairments, assistive technology such as hearing aids and assisted listening devices for students with hearing impairments, or markers or rulers to focus students' attention on a single row. Use the scoring key to determine the total number of correct and incorrect responses and record both of those scores on the cover of the worksheet. You will need to know the number of correct and incorrect items in order to calculate the Daze adjusted score. The Daze adjusted score is the final score for the Daze measure. The adjusted score is used to correct for the possibility that the student answers some items correctly by simply guessing. The formula for calculating the Daze adjusted score is the number of correct responses minus the number of incorrect responses divided by 2. Here you can see the formula. Stated another way, it is the number of correct responses minus half the number of incorrect responses. If the completed formula results in a half point, round up to the nearest whole number. The minimum adjusted score is 0. If the adjusted score is a negative number, record an adjusted score of 0. Do not record a negative number. Most data management services will calculate this formula for you. Use this formula to calculate the adjusted score yourself if you are not using a data management service. To review, here are the steps for calculating the Daze adjusted score. Number 1. Record the number of correct responses. Number 2. Record the number of incorrect responses. Number 3. Divide the number of incorrect responses by 2. Number 4. Subtract the result of step 3 from the number of correct responses. Number 5. The result of the formula should then be rounded up to the nearest whole number. Half points are rounded up. The minimum Daze adjusted score is 0. Do not record a negative number. And finally, number 6, write the adjusted score on the top of the Daze cover sheet and circle it. Here are 2 examples of adjusted scores. This should help illustrate the function of the adjusted score. The first example shows that the formula will not significantly change the raw score for students who are not guessing. Here the student responded to 34 items, 32 correctly and 2 incorrectly. After applying the adjusted score, the student's final score is 31, which is not significantly different from the number of items he or she responded to correctly. In the second example, here we show that the adjusted score will lower the raw score when the student has guessed correctly on a large number of items. We would expect that students that guess on all or most items will answer approximately 1 out of 3 items correctly, simply based on the law of probability. Given that there are 3 possible responses for each item, we can assume a student will guess correctly roughly 1/3 of the time. Therefore, that student will have roughly 2/3 of the items answered incorrectly. Here, the student answered only 8 items correctly with 12 errors. After applying the adjusted score, the student only gets a final score of 2 points. Without applying the adjusted score, this student's score, based on the number of items marked correctly, would have met the beginning of 3rd grade benchmark goal. However, after applying the adjusted score, this student's actual score on the measure indicates that he or she is well below the benchmark goal and likely to need intensive support in the area of comprehension. Record the adjusted score on the cover of the worksheet. To walk you through the process of calculating the adjusted score one more time, here the student answers 24 items correctly with 1 error. Divide the number of errors, 1, by 2, which results in 0.5. Then, subtract that number from the total correct. 24 minus 0.5 equals 23.5. Then, round up any half point to the next whole number. Therefore, the student's final score would be 24. Now let's review some of the key administration and scoring rules for Daze. Try to answer each question before I show the correct response. You can pause the video once all the answers are shown to record the correct responses. When do I start the timer? Start the timer after you say begin. When do I stop the timer? Stop the timer at the end of 3 minutes. How do I score a correct response? Leave correct responses circled, blank. How do I score an incorrect response? Slash incorrect responses. What is the final score for Daze? The final score is the adjusted score, which is the number of correct responses minus the incorrect responses divided by 2. Now let's practice what you've learned. For this practice, you will need the page in your training book that looks like the practice sheet on the screen. And you'll need a pen or pencil. The student materials on the screen indicate the student responses. Use the scoring key on the right-hand side of the page to determine the accuracy of the student's responses. Put a slash over errors and leave blank any correct responses. Pause the video now to complete the practice activity. Here are the correct scoring marks. Check the marks on your handout against the ones on the next 3 slides. Feel free to pause after each slide if I move too quickly for you to check your scoring marks. Now calculate the total correct across all 3 pages. Here's the student's final score. The final score that gets recorded for Daze is the adjusted score. The adjusted score corrects for students who may have been correct by simply guessing. Do not prorate a score on Daze. Most data management services will calculate the score for you. To calculate it yourself, the formula is the number of correct responses minus incorrect divided by 2. Here you can see the student responded to 48 items correctly and had 13 errors. Divide 13 by 2, which equals 6.5. Subtract 6.5 from the number of correct responses, which was 48. 48 minus 6.5 is 41.5. Round up to 42. And record the adjusted score on the cover of the worksheet and transfer it to the cover of each student's benchmark or progress monitoring scoring booklet. Daze is a Dibbles version of a maze procedure which is used in grades 3 through 6. It is typically given to an entire class at the same time. The timing starts after the directions and practice items and stops at the end of 3 minutes. An answer key is available for scoring. Correct responses are left blank and errors are slashed. Errors include incorrect responses, marking more than one word, not responding, or using unclear marks. The adjusted score is the total number of correct responses in 3 minutes minus half the number of incorrect responses. And this concludes the Daze module.